All right, looks like we are live. It is Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. I don't know about you, but I still have not got used to saying 2019. If you'll give me just one moment, I'm going to share this really quickly on a couple of my other pages. And if you'd like to do so, feel free to do so at this time. Invite some friends, invite some family, host a watch party. What else is it called? Yeah. And then we'll get this party started here in just a moment. And while I'm doing that, be sure to say hello. Let me know where you are logging in from and what's the weather like where you are today. Say hello where you're logging in from and what's your weather like. It's a overcast, slightly rainy day and not so sunny Southern California today. It's actually quite nice having a little rain. It's warmer though. It was fairly chilly for us these last few days, but not so much today. So say hello where you're logging in from. And I just have one more share to do. Awesome. And then we'll get started. Let's see who's on here. If this would refresh. A couple just quick asides before we get going with this too. First of all and foremost, let's see. Linda's on here. Hey, Linda, Jamie, what's up? Robin, Carrie, Lisa, good to see you all on here. A couple quick things before we jump in. Number one, oops, I should have had this already prepared. If you want to be on the reminders, and we'll keep reminding everyone about the reminders these first few weeks until we get this all sorted, you can use this link. And then what we'll do is with that is every Friday or Saturday, I'll send you out a reminder for the week schedule with what times we'll be going live, and it'll fluctuate from week to week. We're going to try locking a couple solid times. I think Monday and Tuesday will be pretty firm around 4 p.m. Pacific time. But we're going to continue to experiment, try to optimize this so as many people can see it. And then also depending on my schedule. So you can use that reminder if you haven't already to sign up. Leslie, hey, good to see you on here from London, UK. I bet it's cold there right now. One of my clients was just over there visiting and was saying it was a little dreary. So there was that. Number two, I want to apologize for yesterday. I had committed to doing the Facebook Live at 4 p.m. I thought I would have plenty of time. I was co-facilitating a workshop, a strategic kickoff for some clients of mine for the 2019 planning. My part of the presentation and what I was running went pretty well, but the back end started to back up. And needless to say, we ran about 2-3 hours longer than had been allotted. So I really, really apologize for canceling last minute on those of you. I want you to know that I honor and respect your time, and it really means a lot to me that so many of you show up for these things. And it's definitely never my intention to do that. And if I do make a commitment to show up for one of these, I really do my best to honor it. And so it's totally my bad. I should have allotted for more time, and I apologize for that. Two more announcements. Number three, I encourage you to take notes when you're doing this. Write some down, take notes, participate on it. It's going to help you retain information. And also, please engage. The more you hit the emoji buttons, the comments you put on here, all those types of things, if you share it with other folks, if you tag friends in it for them to join in, Facebook takes all that engagement, and I believe YouTube does, and it says, okay, there's something going on here that we want other people to see, and it encourages it in the Facebook mathematical formula, at least that's how I understand it, to distribute it out to more people. So the amount of people who sees this and is going to be able to have the opportunity to interact with this is going to be greatly dependent on your participation. So please participate, and whether it's just to ask questions, whether it's to make comments, whether it's just to type in smiley face emojis or whatever that is, it's all greatly appreciated. And you not only will you add value to the conversation, but you give somebody else the opportunity to learn and grow too. If I hadn't already said it, please forgive me, and my mind's a little foggy, which I'll explain for the last thing, is be sure to write notes down, and then we'll have a few moments at the end for questions. I encourage you to ask questions. Some of the most and greatest learnings that come from this come from our discussions afterwards when people ask questions. So you can either post your questions as they're going along, and if the opportunity's there, I'll answer them. And if it isn't, what I'll do is I'll circle back to the end and then answer them along with any other questions. Lastly, just full disclaimer, full transparency. I am a little sad right now. And if I tear up a couple times during this, it's not because I'm sad. I'm feeling sad. One of my closest friends is in the process of having to put his dog down right now as we're talking. And he lost his other dog a few months ago. So he loves his dog so much, they're his kids, and my heart just hurts for him. I wish so much that he didn't have to go through this. And, there's that part of me that I more than anything, I wish I could take his pain away, and I know I can't. And I'm in that, as a friend, as a family member, he's really more like a brother for me. And I'm in that space right now that I'm sure many of you have found yourselves in, where somebody who you love and care about so much, and you know that they're hurting, and you want so badly to do something to try to take the pain away, to try to help them, to try to protect them, to try to shield them from the hurt that's out there, and you can't. And you're kind of left with your own feelings around it. So I'm in the middle of my feels right now, and I just wanted to preface that out there with you all. And I'm totally fine. I'm okay. My heart just is really, it's really feeling for my friend, because I know how deeply this is going to affect him and how difficult it's going to be. So I want to be transparent with that. And I think that's it. So we covered engaging. Oh, and I see some of you putting emojis and typing on here. That's awesome. Thank you. Hey, Kathy, thanks for joining us over on YouTube. So we got engagement going. We talked about the registration for that. Apologize for missing yesterday. A quick review of the rest of the week. We're going to be on here Thursday and Friday. Thursday, I believe, is at noon. Friday is, I believe, at 12:30. Both are Pacific times. I'll double check those before we're done. And without further ado, let's dive in. I see Lisa's jumped on. Angie's jumped on here. T's jumped on here. Great to see you all on here. How your mindset is hijacking your success, your fulfillment, and what you can do right away to fix that. So this will be, well, it's supposed to be part 3, but it'll be part 2 of our mindset series this week. And what you'll recall if you were on from Mondays, and if you weren't, I encourage you to go and rewatch Monday, because we had some really good stuff on there, is that basically the summation of who we are in many ways is the thoughts we think and the feelings we feel. And it's often the thoughts that we think. This is one of those, the chicken versus the egg, and I am not in any way, what's the word I'm looking for, high enough to say which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Our thoughts, I think, our thoughts are influencing our emotions oftentimes much faster than we can even imagine that it's happening. And so what happens is we're constantly processing through thoughts, tens of thousands of thoughts a day. And each of those thoughts is triggering and eliciting an emotional response. See, we're all just one big chemistry set, right? That we have these chemicals going off and being elicited in our brain that cause us to feel. What are they? Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and oh shoot, I'm just forgetting the last one. Endorphins. So here they are. They were this big chemical factory going on inside of us all the time, and we're constantly going and pursuing basically these chemical reactions that cause us to feel whatever emotions as we feel, and then we feel the emotions we feel based on the meaning we attach to something. So if I think of whatever it is I think of, whatever it is I focus on, I have a meaning to it. Right now, I'm pretty emotional in the sense of feeling like sadness and hurt, because I'm feeling so deeply for my friend and what he's going to be going through. And so there's a certain meaning I'm attaching to it, right? There's a certain thought process I have going on. There's a certain mindset I have about it. And my mindset is I love my friend dearly. I love him so much that I don't want him to go through pain. This is going to be extremely painful for him. And I just hurt for him. And so my mindset is there. And because my mindset's there, I'm starting to emotionally experience that. Does this make sense? So our mindset is the thoughts we think are going to end up producing and influencing the feelings we feel. And most of these thoughts that we're thinking every day, remember, they're happening faster than this. We can't even keep up with it. There was a study that I read one time that said our unconscious mind, which is producing the bulk of our thoughts each day, and is which is what keeps us alive. It's why we don't have to think about breathing. It's why we don't have to think about oxygenating blood through our body. If we had to do those things consciously, we just wouldn't be able to be here. We'd kind of explode. Our mind just doesn't work that way. So we have this unconscious part of our mind that is able to do and regulate all these biological functions to allow us to exist. Right now, your unconscious mind is working miles in a minute trying to keep up with what I'm talking about. It has its interpretation. You're filtering out unnecessary information. You're analyzing tone. Maybe you're feeling for me too, and you're thinking, gosh, or maybe me telling you about that is bringing up stuff. And so you're trying to be present, listening to me, but then you're also thinking of things that happen for you. And all this is happening in our unconscious, right? The study I read one time said that if you were to measure, if our conscious mind and our unconscious mind ran a race, and what it would take basically our conscious mind, the equivalent of 18 months to process what the conscious mind is able to process in 1 second. So they have the same amount of information to process. The unconscious mind is able to process so much more. You think about that conceptually, right? It's just unfathomable. And so we're always having all these thoughts that are going on unconsciously. We're getting environmental triggers that we're interpreting at again, faster than we can ever register. And then we start to emotionally experience it. And this is where mindset comes in. Because what our mind is attuned to, it's going to pick up on. What we focus on, what we experience, we develop our mindsets because it's not what we were born with. We didn't wake up and one day and say, okay, my mindset is going to be this. It's something that we learned. It's something that we became conditioned for. It's something that we practice repetitiously over and over again. It may not have been something we consciously sought out to practice, but it's something we practiced. We worked hard at it. I've shared with you all many a times my story, and I think I shared it earlier this week on Monday about just some of the daily dialogues I would have with myself to develop the negative mindset I had about myself. Waking up every day and telling myself I was worthless, I was a waste of space, that I was God's punishment to my parents, and so on. So each and every day I was going through that thought process. I was conditioning my mindset. I was conditioning my mind to believe a certain set of ideas or things about myself. And so our mindset is not just something that poof happens one day. It's something that we're always creating and we're reinforcing. Now, the good news with this is because many of us, when we're struggling or we're facing challenging times or we're not succeeding on the level we want, we may think, well, shit, this is out of my control. There's nothing I can do, because that's the mindset we have. See, nothing could be further from the truth. The mindset you have today is the mindset that you created. If you created it, good news is it means that you're able to deconstruct it and build something in its place. Think of your mindset as the Legos. And you can build all these really cool things with Legos. And sometimes you might build something that you may not be a super big fan of. And it doesn't mean the Legos are wrong or broken, nor does it mean it needs to be torn up and thrown away or discarded. But what it does mean is it says you can disassemble the Legos and put them back together in a new way, in whatever way you decide. So just a quick story as an example of this and how our mindsets hijack our success and our fulfillment. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've had a goal to do a TED Talk. And it is something I've literally probably thought about almost every single day for the last 5 or 6 years in some way, shape, or form. And I would say things like, this is going to be the year I'm going to do the TED Talk. This is going to be the year I'm going to do a TED Talk. Never happened, never happened, never happened, never happened. And the reason it never happened was not because of anyone or anything else. It was because of my mindset. Because as much as I wanted it to happen, the mindset I had around doing a TED Talk was, what do I have to share? Is it just me thinking this might be something of value? Am I really ready for that? Who am I to stand in the red circle? There was lots of those little things in there. And so what would happen is when I listened to that, I bought into that mindset, and then I would condition it by not acting right? I had the opportunity to do applications and all those things, but I would choose not to. It would just reinforce it. See, with our mindset, it's a really tricky thing because we'll hear voices that'll send suggestions like that. You're not ready for TED. And the fastest way to prove a mindset like that right is to not take action towards what you'd really want. Because then what happens is it just reinforces it. If I was really ready for TED, I would take action towards what I wanted, right? So therefore, if I'm not taking action towards what I really wanted, it must mean I'm not ready for it. Is this making sense so far? Yes, you all with me? Just if you can type in yes, let me know. Thumbs up, is it making sense? So our mindset is going to be the dictator in a way of the course of our life. And our actions that we choose to take or not take are going to reinforce it. It's like every time the dictator of those voices offer a suggestion and then we choose to act or not act. And depending on what action we take or don't take is just going to reinforce that mindset. Okay. If we have a mindset that's a fearful mindset, shit's going to always happen. Something bad's going to happen. This person's going to hurt me. They're going to let me down. What will happen is we train our focus to start to look for evidence to support that. Evidence that may not even be there. Right? Have any of you ever been in a position where you might be in an argument with a significant other? Thank you for those of you who are writing yes. And you start the argument, and the argument is something about taking out the trash or putting dirty clothes away, whatever it is. And then you're in the argument about it, and then all of a sudden you stop midway in the argument and you realize that you're not even talking about the trash anymore, that you're now talking about why the dishes were done wrong. And maybe as you're arguing about why the dishes were done wrong, you can't even remember what you started the argument off to begin with. Anybody you ever have that happen before? Because see, what we focus on is what we experience. And the argument wasn't about taking out the trash, or it really wasn't about the dishes. What the argument was really about was a mindset that is conditioned to look for something wrong, that is conditioned to look for somebody, a fault, a fear for whatever it is. This is too good to be true. I need to find something wrong because that's the only way it makes sense. And so then we start to look for these little things and create that, right? And then we start to take action in the middle of it, especially when we're really emotional and we're not even thinking and we're fired up to just reinforce that over and over again. This is making sense so far. I see a couple of you typing yes. Cool. Incident, nobody wants to own up to the relationship argument thing before. And it's okay if that's you. This is totally fine. That's why we're here. We're all here to learn together. So the first thing that we want to do, I want to give you 3 things today about what you can do right away to stop the mindset hijacking and start fixing it so you can start achieving more success and fulfillment in your life. The first thing you need to do, and this is going to probably be one of the hardest things to do, is to acknowledge that there's a payoff. You need to acknowledge that there's a payoff for allowing your mindset to stay as it is. What do I mean by payoff? There's a lottery win in keeping your mindset as it is. There is some sort of payoff, whether it's an excuse, a reason, a justification. It might be an ace that you get to keep up your sleeve later on. Whatever it is, each and every one of us that allow our mindsets to hijack our success gets some sort of immediate payoff. The payoff might be something like, well, we don't have to risk getting hurt. We don't have to risk failing. We don't have to risk, for me, one of my payoffs with not applying for TED would have been, I don't have to risk people not watching it. Because, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I have this idea. Maybe it's worth sharing. Maybe a lot of people would benefit from it. And then what if nobody watches it? I can't tell you how many times over the years that I had a good piece of content or a video that I thought would be really beneficial and a lot of people jump on, and then nobody watched it. Even with some of these lives, I had to work through my mindset around it because I was going to a point last year. I loved doing this, but I was struggling because I was saying, God, I have like 80,000 plus people on my Facebook page and nobody shows up on these lives. What the fuck? And so my mindset started to be, well, maybe they don't like me. Maybe I don't come across well in video. Maybe I cuss too much. Maybe I too squirmy in the seat. Maybe they don't like my voice, whatever that was, right? There's lots of things that came in. And one of my, just kind of an insight into me, one of my commitments in doing these lives this year and committing to you up front about it is because I don't want my mindset to be that way anymore. I don't want my mindset to be measuring how many people show up. I want my mindset to be about showing up and from a place of love, delivering content, delivering value to all of you for people who want to learn. And that's it. And that's it, period. And then with the belief that if people do believe in it and they do find value in it, they'll share it with their friends, their family, they'll encourage them to join in, they'll send it over to them, whatever it is. But have it not be about who comes, but have it be about what the message is, what the meaning is behind it. Does this make sense? So there's a payoff for me with that. I didn't have to risk anything. I didn't have to have my ego be bruised. There's payoffs in everything. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to acknowledge there's a payoff. Because if we live on denial island and on denial island, we'll often tell ourselves stories like there's no payoff for me. I'm just here to be miserable. Nothing can be further from the truth. It's the payoff is where it's the safe space, right? It's where you can stay as you are. It's where you can have your arms folded, where you can cast judgment on other people, pointing the finger outwards, never having to acknowledge these fingers that are pointing back. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always this reason. It's always this justification. And you never have to risk looking at the person in the mirror and saying, hey, you know what? It's nobody else. It's me. I'm the one fucking this up. Makes sense? I'm staying in my not so great marriage right now for the immediate payoffs. That's powerful to share. I really appreciate you doing that. And so just acknowledging that, there's power in that, because what it does is by acknowledging that, it gives us a space to change. See, if we don't acknowledge these realities that we've created for ourselves, we get to go around and keep playing in victim mode and saying, well, there's nothing I can do. I can stay in a marriage that's not so great because there's nothing I can do. I can continue to not pursue Ted because there's nothing I can do. You know, I don't have anything of value to contribute. And I'll watch these other people do it. And I sit there and get, well, why the fuck are they doing it? And I'm not doing it. I could do it, right? I don't have to go after my business because it's stupid to try. I don't have to, whatever the case may be, right? If we don't acknowledge that there's a payoff, we don't give ourselves space to create change. So what I encourage all of you to do right now is, whether you have the courage to do it like Carrie just did and share it in here, or you just want to keep it to yourself, whatever it is, but acknowledge right now the payoff, or one of the payoffs you get from the mindset you currently have, the mindset that you want to rewire, the mindset that you want to change. Because by taking action and acknowledging there's a payoff, it gives you space to create change. It lets you actually see what you're working with and understand yourself at a deeper level about why you do what you do. And then it allows you to not cut the bullshit out. So you don't have to lie to yourself anymore, because lying is part of the reason that mindset is so exhausting. And it's not that you're lying to others. It's the constant lies you tell yourself about why things are the way they are. And that lie usually goes something like, well, this is how it is. I'm powerless to do anything to change it. All right. So the second thing with this is, we have to stop the generalization lie. We will often reinforce our mindset struggles with broad generalizations. I can never this. I'm always this. It works for everybody else but me. I can never think of this, right? Always, never, everyone. We make broad generalizations like that because what happens then is we can hide behind the safety of the generalizations. The generalizations come with a lot of weight, a lot of power, right? Everyone can have a happy relationship, but me. Fuck, everyone? It's you versus 8 billion people? Man, I don't know about all of you, but that seems pretty damn impossible. So what's the hell is the point of trying, right? Everyone but me seems to be able to have a great career. Everyone. Right? I never wake up refreshed. I never wake up excited. I never wake up motivated. I'm never inspired. Really? Never? What about the time when you really have to pee and you're kind of doing the pee dance because there's a line to the bathroom, or you're a little bit away, and then you run home and then you drive in there? You can't tell me that in that moment of going and finally being able to release your bladder, you're not pretty motivated to go. You're not pretty motivated to do something. Now, it may be just a basic biological thing, but there's motivation nonetheless, right? You have to be willing to call bullshit on your generalizations, because there's nothing but lies. See, if your generalization is about yourself, there's likely been a moment, as fleeting as it may have been, there's likely been a moment somewhere in there, somewhere in the story that is your life, where it wasn't true. And if it wasn't true for one moment, it means it cannot be true for other moments too, if you're willing to do the work and to create change. It's our generalizations that keep us guarded. It's our generalizations that keep the fuel for the mindset lie that keeps it going. It's our generalizations that allow us to keep hijacking ourselves over and over again, because the generalizations, all they do is they reinforce that they're the unwillingness to acknowledge the payoff. So you got to stop the generalizations lies. The third thing is set yourself up for success. You got to set yourself up for success. Micro goals are going to make much more of a massive impact than massive goals. When people start to, I was giving a talk not that long ago about what does it take for somebody to be successful, especially around goal setting and New Year's resolutions. And why is it that so many people fail? And it's something like 80-90% of the people don't achieve their goals, don't achieve the resolutions. And I said flat out, people don't give a shit. They're kind of like, wait, what? How can I not give a shit about the goals? They don't. They don't care enough about them to make emotional meaningful. They don't care enough about them to structure them in a way that allows them to set themselves up for success. They don't care enough about them to do the other things that they need to do to create success and support in order to achieve those goals. So setting yourself up for success would be something like, let's say your goal is to start your new business this year. That's a pretty big goal. The micro goals to it are going to be the steps that you get the momentum behind. So a goal for today might be to go and buy the domain for your business. Another goal might be to go and get XYZ for it. Let's say your goal is to lose 30 pounds. That could be a pretty big goal. But your goal for today would be just go to the gym. And then your goal for the week would be eat healthy 5 times. See, if we can focus on those little micro goals, then what it does is they can start to build on each other over and over again, and they generate momentum. If we're just focusing on this big, massive goal, it can seem so far-fetched and so overwhelming that it may seem impossible to do, which completely demotivates us. And then we fall back to the generalizations and the mindset of, I can't, and it's impossible, and it's not for me. And then we acknowledge there's no payoff behind it. Making sense? And there's one other piece of this that I think is extremely vital, and you've all heard me say this before, I'm going to say it again, is accountability. You got to have some sort of accountability system in place to get this together. If you're not setting yourself up for success and you're not putting in some sort of accountability implementation, you are going to struggle. And I mean, that's just it. You'll struggle. One of the things that I do with each and every one of my private coaching clients is after we meet, I give them homework. And I give them homework and I tell them my expectation is that they're going to send me in their homework. And then when they send their homework into me, if I haven't received it in a timely manner, I send them, they get a nice little note from me that says something like, just checking in, where's your homework? And then they'll send their homework over to me. And then once they send their homework over to me, then I usually send them follow-up stuff to it to keep the process going, to keep the accountability. And if they don't get their homework to me, guess what they get? They get a nice little note from me. It says, hello, where's your homework at? So, and if they try to give me excuses for it or whatever it is, we start to dive into that. Now, what's great about this too, is if I ever give them excuse, guess who the first people are to hold me accountable to it? And it's awesome because what happens is through our process of working together, not only do we get to go through the transformational process of taking them from where they are to where they want to be, but we raise our collective standards by the level of accountability that comes in that dynamic. Does that make sense? This is why accountability is so important. And whether it's you utilize me, you work with someone like myself, you work with somebody else out there, whatever the case may be, is find someone to hold you accountable and who will hold you to a higher standard than you may currently hold yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And if we're not setting standards higher, this is one of the things I think can be so great about social media is you can curate your social media feed. So you are literally only seeing people who inspire you, people who push you, people who drive, people who are setting big goals, people who are doing big things, people who are making changes in the world like you want to make. And that becomes kind of a social situation, social system for you. It becomes an ecosystem that you can really cultivate and thrive in. The environment you create is extremely important. So Accountability is absolutely crucial. So let me see. Did I have anything else? Yes, two other things. And then, so really quickly, I'm going to recap everything. And that's going to be your cue to start typing your questions in about this. So before I recap, and I'm saying so way too much, my Toastmasters get a big Toastmaster slap on the wrist with that. Number one, there's 4 things that we talked about today to help you stop the mindset hijack so that you can start achieving more success and fulfillment in your life. The first thing is acknowledging there's a payoff. There isn't always a payoff of some sort to why we do what we do, even though it may not seem like it in the moment, but there is a payoff. And if you haven't acknowledged it yet, I encourage you to find the courage to do so. You can be bold and brave like Carrie was and acknowledge it in here, or you can write it down for yourself, but acknowledge the payoff. Because when you acknowledge there is, if you pretend there's no weeds in your garden and the garden's filled with fucking weeds, guess what? You're back on denial island. Not a lot's going to change. Going out there and pretending there's no weeds is not going to get rid of the weeds. Where you find space to create change is to acknowledge that there's some weeds, and you got to do some work and start pruning those little suckers so that way you can start planning what you really want. Number 2, you got to give up the generalization lies, right? We will fuel these types of negative mindsets and these limiting mindsets because of the generalizations we hide behind. Always, everyone, never. Stop lying to yourself. It's not so severe. You're not up against 8 billion people. It's you versus the person in the mirror. Number 2, set yourself up for success. Micro goals. So here's the big goal, 30 pounds. Here's the big goal, get your business launched. Here's the big goal, transform your relationship. And then what are the daily steps with that? And then not focus so much on the big goal, that's there, but focus on what you need to do that day to take a step forward. And then knowing that each and every day you take those steps, it's going to get you closer to that goal. Lastly, accountability system. Get somebody who will help you raise your standards to a higher place than you have themselves, who will dig in deep with you and help you achieve that which you know what's in your heart and your mind that you're capable of. Don't short yourself with this, because you all know deep down that you have the potential inside of you to do absolutely extraordinary things. If you didn't, you probably wouldn't be here. But part of what brings you here is because there's a little voice inside of you saying that life can be more. And that's not to say life has to be bad, but life can be more. It could go from good to great. It could go from great to really great. It could go from really great to fucking awesome. And whatever you want out of life, that's awesome. But honor that voice enough to pursue it and raise your standards to achieve that. So before I open up for questions, last but not least, I have 2 spots that open up for the end of the week for a strategy session with me. If you want one of them, you're somebody who is serious about doing coaching, and I haven't talked to you yet before, you can take advantage of this opportunity and meet with me, and we'll talk about how coaching can make a massive impact on your business, your life this year. So I'm posting that link in there, and you can use that to fill out and grab one of those 2 remaining strategy sessions for this week. Facebook Live reminder, I put that in there as well. Was this helpful? And what questions do you have? Was this helpful, and what questions do you have? And then reminder, tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and then Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time will be the other 2 Facebook Lives this week. And I should have closed the story off if you last year in 2018, after transforming my mindset around TED, I did my first TED Talk, and I think it was really pretty awesome. And I think that there's a really meaningful message in there that people who are open to receiving it can make a really profound difference in their life and the lives of a lot of people. So it's still not out yet. It's supposed to be any day now. And I really hope that you all will want to hear it and see it. Linda asks, thank you for asking a question, Linda. You mentioned ego earlier, and I was going to ask you about it today. Where does our ego fit in with our mind and emotions? Is it just part of those or something more? You know, that's a great question, Linda. And there's so many different ways that we could look at ego. And whether we look at it as independent entity, whether we look at it as an integrated part of us, whether we look at it as a psychological construct or an emotional one, you know, I am not an ego enough expert to say where exactly it is. So what I've always used for myself to define ego is when I'm doing something or not doing something for fear of what somebody else will think, that's my ego popping up. That's my ego popping up, and it's trying to protect a scary little boy or whatever it is, or a story that I've created about why I shouldn't, about me not being enough, me not being good enough. And ego will often show up when there's the risk of being vulnerable, because we sometimes believe that vulnerability is weakness, and nothing can be further from the truth. Carrie was very vulnerable earlier in making her share, and I just scrolled back through, and quite a few of you already acknowledged that the share she made. Vulnerability is really powerful, and I think vulnerability is often one of the greatest strengths that we have. And so, I would look at that as, for your own definition of ego, is look at it as it's that space where there's something on your heart, your soul, your bones, your body that you know you should do, and the only thing keeping you from doing that is the fear of what others might think, how you may be judged, how you may be perceived by others. And that's the place where ego kind of exists. Is that helpful? Good question. It was an awesome message. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate you being here. You know, you've got me studying. Yeah, very helpful. Oh, awesome, Angie. Thank you. I thought I couldn't sing. Now I sing in the choir. That's so awesome, Kathy. Gotta go. I'll check the rest later. Okay, very cool. Oh, that's so helpful. Any other questions? I have time for one more, then I have to dash off to a meeting. Yes, cool. So just as a reminder for that, 2 strategy sessions, use that link. If you haven't acknowledged what you're getting as a payoff, be bold enough to type it in here or write it down on a piece of paper, but acknowledge it. Do not bullshit yourself any longer, because the longer you lie to yourself, the longer you're going to stay exactly where it is, and you're not going to be able to get the benefit of rewiring your mindset. Your mindset cannot be rewired. If you go out to the garden, that is your mind, and you pretend there's no weeds, and there's a hell of a lot of weeds out there. It's not going to transform overnight, but it starts with you acknowledging that there's some space to create change with this. All right, I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to bid you all adieu. Huge thanks to all of you for being here. I appreciate you making the time and effort to show up. Thank you so much to those of you who have been engaging, who have been commenting, who have shared this. I really appreciate each and every one of you doing that, who invited your friends to join in. Also, again, my apologies for missing yesterday. I totally misbooked and got a little overzealous with what I thought I could and couldn't do. And I think that's it for today. So wherever you are, morning, noon, or night, sending lots of love to each of you. Remember, Carpe Diem, seize the day, seize the moment. It's the only moment right now is the only moment that you're guaranteed. So make the absolute most of it. Some of you, if not all of you, tomorrow. We'll see you then, everybody. Bye-bye.